All right, we are back and we are back and we're live. Finally. See, David is here with us, joining in from Chicago. Hi, David. Welcome for today's conversation. Let's wait for the others to join us too. I can also see finally the chat, which is working. Great. Yes, thank you for letting me know. Welcome back, everyone. I'm finally live and I'm here and I can see the chat box finally. Hey, welcome, welcome. Okay, come all in, make yourself comfortable, grab a cup of tea for today's conversations. This is our very first live, and I want to thank you with all my heart, my team that inspired me today to be here. I'm used to be in the jungle with a group of people all around, and with the plants and the birds and the trees with my maestro. And for me, it's something new to be live with you. So please, uh, send me love, maybe put like or subscribe, and and yeah, very grateful also to have the chat which is working. I want to thank you again, my team. They put so much care for today live. They inspired me to be here today. I also want to thank you, my beloved Estefania. She's going to help me to collect all the questions. One, check the chat box. She will do the job for me, my beloved Estefania. She will collect all the questions, and she's gonna pass it to me at the very end of this conversation. So while I'm talking, you're welcome to write all your questions. I'm also asking Estefania to introduce yourself on the chat box. We want to share that all the big news that we're getting married on the 5th of May, just 2 months ago. I proposed her on the Noya Rao tree after a dieta that we concluded together of Noya Rao. We wrote a beautiful story about it, an article. So, Stephanie, I'm asking you if you want to share the article in the chat box so you guys can read it, can read our love story under the Noya Rao tree. All right. Now I love to start for today lecture and these conversations about something that it's quite important to me. It's about the master plan and the master plan dietas. Before I begin, I want to set the space with the intentions to create something sacred, respectful, and create an honest space with me, with you guys. And it's also important for me to give thanks to my maestro because of them I'm here today. And I want to thank my very first maestro, Manako Manain from Iquitos, from the jungle. I want to thank and give all my gratitude to my maestro, Maestra Juanita, Papa Gilberto, and of course, Maestro Don Miguel. He worked alongside with me, offering plant dieta and the work of Madrecita Ayahuasca. But I like also to look back and see the path that I walked to be here today. And by looking back, I want to remember my grandfather. His name is Horacio. And he taught me a great deal about shamanism. Of course, I was very young, I was little, but he was very connected to spirits and to the plant. He was a big, tall man, quite quite unusual for an Italian from the south. I'm from Italy, and I'm from the south of Italy. And so, as a tall man, blue eyes, brown hair, and I still remember when I was little. I'm talking about maybe 7, 8 years old, and we were in the south of Italy, where I'm from. And maybe you can think about land with red soil and fig trees and many olive trees. And he was a farmer, and but also he had a gift. He was a healer in his own village. And I still remember many people come to visit him, to receive his healings and blessings. I remember he worked with some plants, but also he worked with his hands. He had powers in his hands. And he was able to help others, but also I remember that many people will come to see him because he was very famous. He was able to find water underground with the use of olive tree, with the branch an olive tree. Holding this branch with 2 hands, he will walk around the the farm, and by holding this olive branch, feeling the vibrations of this olive branch, he could tell you how deep was the water. He could tell you where was water and also how deep the water was. It was quite famous. People will come from Germany or the north part of Italy to to see him. But I was little. I was about 7, 8 years old, and for me, it was all a game. He taught me a few things, but what it really stayed with me were all his stories. Because at night, he loved to tell me all the stories about plants and spirits, and for me, it was all a game, of course, but really shaped my path into shamanism. Because that stayed with me for many, many years. And since young, I was reading books about shamanism. From all these stories, I continue being curious and wanted to know more about plants, about spirits. And so to think about where I am today in this path with the plant and spirit, and also need to think about him and send my gratitude to my grandfather. And also I have to thank and be grateful for what I received through ayahuasca. After all those readings about shamanism, I was very inspired by the stories of Castaneda, for example. He wrote many books, and I read them all. And of course, he mentioned many times ayahuasca. And since then, I knew it that one day or another I will get to encounter Madrecita ayahuasca. And that happened not in Peru, not in Italy. It happened in Australia. I used to live in Australia. My background is also of a social worker. So back then in 2018, I was living and working in Australia. And my first encounter with Madrecita ayahuasca was on my birthday in 2019, on the 17th of December. That's my birthday. And the healing path, my own personal healing path, really started then. I had to face my own shadows. I have to heal my own traumas. By doing that, I finally found something that I was looking for. As a social worker, I was I was dealing with so many cases from people with intellectual disabilities, from I supported women and young children affected by sex trafficking and slavery, refugees, for example, the Tibetan refugees as well, when I worked and traveled in India. But there was something always missing. It was there was something that I could not give to them, right? To support them, to help them, which I then found with ayahuasca. And so the encounter was very important for me, for my own healing, but also to learn about the power of ayahuasca, not from a book anymore. Now I was connecting with ayahuasca. And so very quickly, I got involved with the medicine community in Australia, supporting them, helping them out, whatever I could do in ceremonies, of course, helping with the bucket, supporting people going to the bathroom. Until one day, I was eager to understand and learn more. It was a time for me to travel to the jungle, to see and touch and feel ayahuasca divine. And so I was ready. I was ready to live my life and quit my job, um, close some ties from Australia, and then back to this adventure to the jungle of Peru. And back then, people will ask me, "So you're going to the jungle? What are you going to do? Which master plans are you going to diet?" I didn't know anything back then. It was 2011, first time I traveled to Peru. And I didn't know anything about master plan dietas. I only knew about ayahuasca. And I thought, well, ayahuasca is everything. And that's only I want to know, I want to connect with. And so you go. This young Elio wanted to travel to Australia and meet the vine and drink more ayahuasca. That's what I had set as my intention. But things turned to be different because all I knew back then was about ayahuasca. I didn't see or I didn't know about the old jungle that stretches beyond ayahuasca. And what my very first maestro, Manako Manain from Iquitos, on my very first dieta, finally, that introduced me to this technology to connect with the spirit of a plant or a tree. And so the day that I met before we began our dieta together, it asked me what master plants I wanted to diet. Well, I didn't know anything about it. So he proposed to me 3 plants. I still remember the day. And he said, well, while I'm teaching you, you can connect with the spirit of one of these plants. One was Chichawasi, Ahosacha, and a Chiricsanango. So he gave me these 3 options and he asked me a question. What is your intentions? What you want to achieve? Is it physical healing? Is it emotional healing? Do you want to connect with dreams or visions or your soul purpose? Back then I didn't know what to answer. And so I said to him, I want to be strong. I want to be courageous. And he said, then the right plant for you would be Chuchuwasa. Wow. Okay. And so we finally agreed for me to connect with Chuchuwasa to receive the physical healing, to be strong, and some spiritual insight, right? To be courageous. And so that was my very first dieta. Again, I still knew very little about master plan dieta. And so one day, during my time with him, I still remember we were in the jungle, just me and him, and I asked him, Maestro, what is master plan dieta all about? Can you tell me more? And he grabbed a stick and he drew on the ground a eye in the middle, and from the eye a spiral all around. And so at the end, he told me, you see, here in the middle, the eye is ayahuasca. And this line is a spiral all around are all the plants, all the trees from the jungle. And so through this eye of ayahuasca, you can connect with the jungle, all the plants and the tree. And from the plants and the trees that you connect with, you can know and you can learn more about ayahuasca. And so finally, that made so much sense to me. They were not two separate things, ayahuasca or master plan dieta. Before then, I was doing ceremony after ceremony. But what was missing was the framework of integrations through the a shamanic lineage of the jungle. But now this maestro finally told me that all the plants and the trees are also part of ayahuasca too. And so like a portal, while you're in ayahuasca, you can connect with the spirit of those plants and trees. And so that was the beginning of my journey, which didn't end there. I continued to want to know more about. And so I spent some time in the jungle. And I must say that I was very fortunate or privileged to encounter a Shipibo family that welcomed me with them. And I spent 2 years on and off living with the Shipibo people and understand more of their way of life, especially around their tradition, especially what I was receiving from the maestro there. And there was another piece of the puzzle that was missing, was to understand where these traditions was coming from, to understand where this lineage is coming from. So there I left my family, my friends in Australia. I decided to be there and be with the elders and the Shipibo, but also knowing that I'm not there to take their wisdom and knowledge and make it mine, and give it away. Not at all. So still a social worker, and living with them was an opportunity for me to also support them, children, for example, the family. I wanted to make a difference while I was there receiving their teachings. And so I felt like there was reciprocity into our connection, me being part of the family, but also giving back as a good family member. But what I learned by hearing the stories was something very powerful. They taught me, the maestro and the elders, that they had to leave their family, their friends, their community since very young, at 8 years old or 9 years old. They were taken away from by their grandfathers. They were taken to the jungle to spend time in isolation. There was something new for me as well, something new for me to understand and learn. And I still remember my maestro there. He was sharing the stories with some tears. For him, it was also very hard and difficult to leave his family and village and friends and brothers and sisters, to be away from them in the jungle in isolation. It was very difficult for them as well. But they were introduced that in this way, like an initiation for them to the spirit world residing in the jungle, residing in the plants and plant kingdoms and the trees. So they were taken to the jungle, maybe by their grandfathers, to learn a different way of life, to be initiated into to become a maestro maybe one day. During the time of isolations, they had to make some sacrifices. They had to fast for some period of time. They have to avoid certain elements, certain food, for example, oils or sugar, salt, garlic, onion, red meat, and pork. They were probably only eating a little bit of fish, some rice or plantain, potatoes probably. And they had to endure time in isolations for weeks, months, if not years alone, probably with their grandfathers if they were with young age. And during the time, they drank the tea made of their master plant. So their grandfather, they were little, they chosen to them to give them a specific master plant for them to create a relationship with the spirit of that plant and the tree in order to receive powers, to receive gifts, to receive a songs and icaros. So in a way, this dieta was very sacred. Fasting, isolations, but also deep listening on their master plant, drinking the tea made of the extract of their master plant, a tree or a plant. Once they've received the healing powers from the plant, then they were ready to return to their village, continue their work of apprentice. If they were little, for example, continuing dieting different plants, again with fasting, silence, with isolation, to finally receive, harness the powers of the plants and offer that to their loved ones, to their village, to their family, in ceremonies by singing the songs they've received from the plants themselves, from the tree. Songs of healing, songs that have powers, the icaros, and they share them in ceremony. So there was something new for my path, in my path now. I understood that there was more just connecting with the plant spirit. There is a relationship that you build, that you create with the plant. By making the sacrifices, which now I look at more as an offer. I offer my silence. I offer my fasting. I avoid certain food so I can listen. I can hear the voices of my plants, of the jungle. And so to tell you more about the Master Plan Dieta and what I've learned, which I learned from those maestros, is a relationship that we seek to create in order to receive maybe physical healing, some emotional healing, maybe spiritual insights, which might be dreams, visions, maybe soul purpose. Also, maybe to prepare you for a bigger initiation, maybe to become a leader, or there is a big life shift. So you might be thinking, what is the right plant and the right tree for me? Maybe you don't even know them. Maybe you haven't been in the jungle yet. And I really like what Don Miguel often tells me when he walks in the jungle and he finds a plant or a tree that he doesn't know much about it. What he does, he collects the leaves, he takes it home, he washes the leaves, and he prepares a bath. He washes himself before he goes to bed. He asks permissions by inviting also the spirit of the plant, the tree, in his dreams to learn more about it in his dream. So he collects the leaves of this plant, he bathes, he goes to bed, and opens his door in his dreams to invite the spirit of the plant to teach him his purpose, maybe the use of the plant itself. And for Don Miguel, something that is beautifully important is when he chooses a plant to diet, to connect with. Usually he goes to the plant itself, maybe finds a young one, a young tree, for example, and he asks permission. And he used the tool which is very important for the Shipibo people, the mapacho, right? He brings his pipe, he sings his icaros, calling his other maybe master plants or his lineage, asking permissions to collect the bark of this tree or the branch of this tree. As an offer, you might put some mapacho itself, which is tobacco, on the ground. It is believed to be the mapacho itself a very powerful master plant, even more powerful than a ayahuasca itself. And so we'll collect the bark or the branch of this tree. It will go home. It will prepare the tea by boiling the branch of or the bark of the tree. Then he will start his dieta. He will set certain numbers of days or weeks or maybe a month to be in isolations, to avoid certain food. For them, it's very important to pay attention to the spirit of the tree. Sometimes not only appears in ayahuasca ceremonies, it might appear in dream space, in meditations, in times when we are quiet, times where we quiet our mind and we listen. And so then we start the dieta with some important rules and food restrictions, which now I understand the reasons why they're avoiding salt and sugar and oils and red meat and pork, because those elements change the body composition, but also even the spiritual body as well. They strongly believe that red meat and pork can do that. Also, they abstain from sex and stimulants, so truly to be as quiet as possible. And that they open a portal of communications between their body, their mind, their soul, with nature. And those subtle messages can come on dreams and the quiet moments, which then they also, if they pay attention, can receive icaros, songs from the plant itself. But the dieta doesn't end simply. It is also important to understand that when you close the dieta, this relationship that you now built, that they now built with the spirit of the plant or the tree, stays with them, stays with you after the dieta is over. And so it's important to conclude the dieta consciously. I like what the maestro taught me, for example, if you remember the story I shared about this young maestro, 8-9 years old, that left his family after this long dieta and isolations, he had to break the dieta by chewing a red hot chili pepper. He had to chew this red hot chili pepper to break the dieta, but he also had an extra task. He had to spit the seed of the red hot chili pepper in the ground, making a hole, covering this hole, the seed inside, and wait the chili plant to grow. If the plant grew it, then he passed this initiation. If that didn't happen, they had to either start over again or then choose not to become a maestro. But now this is not well, it's offered, for example. But there is still very similar way to break a dieta, to close the dieta, and which involves a red hot chili pepper, right? Don't have to spit the seed in the ground and wait to the plant to grow. Instead, is a way to tell your body that now the dieta is over. We can introduce now the food that we have sacrificed or we have offered to our dieta. There's other stories of maestros concluding the dieta by drinking a shot of tequila, something strong, to tell the body that the dieta now it's over. It is a way of closing the dieta, but remember, the connections with the plant spirit stays with you. So it's important that you introduce the food and the people maybe after you've been in isolations slowly, right? Your maestro will also give you a post dieta, some important requirement to follow after dieta is closed. Most likely you can reintroduce all the food, for example, oils and the sugar and salt, onion, the garlic, the spices, chocolate, the coffee. They sacrifice it before starting the dieta. But it is important for some maestro to give you some time to continue abstain from sex and pork. This is more of a spiritual cleanse that you keep some time after the dieta is over. For pork is an energetic protection that you might have to avoid for certain time. For sex, also by abstaining from sex, you continue to bring more energy into the dieta. Also, look at this way: after you end the relationship with the spirit of the tree or the plant, you not go with somebody new or somebody right away, or maybe sharing this energy now that's with you with somebody else. So important that you give yourself some time. Usually is your maestro, the person that they supervised your dieta. They will tell you how long to wait before you can now be intimate with somebody. So it's very important to keep also the post dieta in mind, right? From opening, giving gratitude and asking permission, having the space to receive the insights, the healing powers, maybe the songs from the plants and the trees. And finally, when you close and you break the dieta, maybe something strong like chili or tequila, but having in mind that there are times of integrations after the dieta to keep our energy field clean and pure, because more insights, more information will come also after the dieta. I feel like I say a lot so far, so I'd love to see if there are other questions. Love to know if Stephanie has collected some questions, and if you wanna pass that to me. If you do have questions, please now write it on the chat box. Okay, we have a beautiful question here from Aggie, and she's asking, how do you know if you are ready to work with the master plant, and how to recognize the calling that's not coming from the mind? Well, I can answer from my experience. I didn't know much about master plan dieta until I got to Peru. So I was fortunate to encounter the maestro that introduced me to the plant and master plan dietas. And I feel that the calling, even though we don't really recognize it as a calling, because often we bring the mind into it. The calling might already be there. There are signs around you, maybe being here in these conversations is part of this calling. It doesn't always mean to be 100% sure or without fears. It's often like a quiet inner knowing. Maybe it's not from the mind, as you say, maybe from a quiet, deep space in your heart or in your body. Maybe comes the sign that I told you, maybe come as a dream or repeated sign. In fact, maybe you find this space, for example. Also, a true calling doesn't have to be forced. It's not based on trends everybody's doing now. The master plan dieta, I have to do that now. It's more like a gentle calling. And of course, it's important to be this call be rooted with respect and curiosity, and be ready to listen and to learn and transformed. Okay, we open the Q&A chat here, so I'm ready to take any questions you might have. Also, I want you to know the news that we opened for remote dieta with Noya Rao, and the next offer is in October. This is a little different than coming all the way to Peru and be with the Noya Rao tree, for example. If that's not possible for you, well, we've been created since now 5 years is a space where we dieting remotely at home, the Noya Rao tree. This is not only with me, it will be with Maestro Don Miguel and our facilitator Melissa. We'll send the bark of Noya Rao so you can receive it at home. We'll teach you how to prepare the master plan dieta so you can start drinking the extract of Noya Rao. Don Miguel will be there meeting everyone every day on a Zoom call. For example, on the first day, he will open the space and your dieta with his icaros. Last day, he will close the dieta with the arcana, which are songs of protection. He will tell you your post-dieta requirement. But every day, we'll meet to connect with the group and learn more about this beautiful technology of connecting with the spirit of the plant and the tree and the Noya Rao. So you're very welcome to join us, and see that there is the link right here. If we do longer dietas at AYA HealingRetreats is another question, which focus around the master plan with the AYA, let's say just with Noya Rao for 30 days. So our longest dieta at the moment is 26 days. We are feeling into perhaps opening a longer dieta to those that have done the 26 days at the end of next year. But of course, ayahuasca it's part of what we offer, but it is not the focus. For instance, if you only want to diet the master plant at the center because you want to be with the trees, Noya Rao is there, then you can be there and follow the master plan dieta without drinking ayahuasca. You're always welcome to join the ceremonies and receive the powers of Don Miguel and other maesters with the icaros and ceremony. And but you can be there to connect with your master plan dieta with ayahuasca. They asked me if I had some challenges and how I overcome them. Yes, plants truly test you, and I look at them as an opportunity that they offer to you. They don't do that because they're mean. Often they put the challenge in front of you so you can learn something new by overcoming that challenge. And if I shared one, I like to share my very first dieta and experience with Noya Rao. And I was very excited. It was my very first dieta with Noya Rao. I had decided to offer 7 weeks as my first dieta with Noya Rao. And it took me some time to decide it where, because I wanted to be with the tree. And back then, there were not many Noya Rao tree around. So I had to really look for it. But when I finally found, I opened my dieta. And ceremony after ceremony, I was confronted by visions of myself, visions of who I was pretending to be. It was showing me masks about that I had on myself. Back then, I had these long dreadlocks that had 10 years or more long. And in ceremonies, while I was dieting Noya Rao, I was seeing visions after visions of me with these dreadlocks pretending to be something else or someone else. So again, showing me my shadows, the masks that I was wearing. But I wasn't able to understand how to overcome them, because in those visions it also showed me to cut my dreadlocks, and that was something that was very hard for me to do. I was very attached to those dreadlocks, which I was very attached to that persona that I was pretending to be. But the visions were very clear, day after day, until one day I told the maestro there, I say, this is the visions that I'm having over and over. And he said, well, that's very clear. You need to now remove those dreadlocks, start afresh, start new. And I say to him, no, I cannot do that. I was thinking, this is crazy. I'm never going to cut my dreadlocks. And the night, because the night was in between ceremonies, I couldn't sleep. I was thinking, should I not? The morning, when I wake up, well, I didn't sleep at all with that night, but the morning, going back from my tambo, the jungle hut, to get some breakfast, I cross path with the maestro, and we look at each other, and I say, yes, we need to cut it now. We need to cut it here. He ran back to his house, grabbed scissors, came back to me, and chopped all those dreadlocks. Of course, this is a Shipibo maestro, um, and there we go. It was me now, shed hair, and now I can tell you that there was the night was ceremony night, and then night was probably one of the best ceremonies I've had with the medicine because I had a big smile. I was touching my head. It was finally free from the dreadlocks, and I understood that there was something to get rid of, or better say, to let go. And so those visions have shifted, and at the end of the dieta, to give gratitude to the to Noya Rao, I bury those dreadlocks at the Noya Rao tree. Mhm. I had another question from David. He asked me how many diets and how many days of diets have I undergone. Um, it's hard now to say how many days I've dieted. The longest one all at once was 2.5 months, but they often had break of a week or two and then back in the jungle dieting. Nowadays, because I'm facilitating, it's more difficult for me to diet because I'm supporting a group of people, and and and, and it's difficult. I'll say, for example, only this year I was able to diet for together was 15 days. But in the past, I've dieted for much longer before AYA HealingRetreats. But I'll say that I've been dieting Noya Rao since 2015. It was the end of 2015. And ever since, I've been dieting Noya Rao. And I feel by dieting the same plant or the same tree for long, I I built a stronger relationship with the spirit of this tree. Somebody asked me if I can share more about how I face your shadow. So these questions um, makes me think about my dieta with Bob and Sana. I like to share that. It was my very first dieta with Bob and Sana, and for many years I've been sitting ceremonies with different maestros, mostly with the Shibu people, of course. And the ceremonies they create the space they create, especially when you are the only Westerner, it's something that is shared. There is not like a maestro and that is singing and everyone is just receiving. Had many opportunities that I been just um, with the indigenous people, with the Shipibo people, and they were all singing at once together and to each other. So there were ceremonies where the family would bring the little ones or the elders. Some people would drink ayahuasca, some other not. Of course, there was a maestro singing, but at one point, everybody else were singing to each other. It was very confronting, to be honest, because as I was used to, I guess, to having the maestro and receiving from the maestro, there was different setting. But every time, or every ceremony, they would ask me to sing, and I was very afraid. I was very afraid to to be seen. I was very afraid to share my voice. I'm looking more into what stopped me was around how I felt my voice was or sounded to be, and I'd say is was around self-esteem. So took me a long time, but that's really what was coming to the surface. And while they at every ceremony they were asking me, they invited me to sing, and I was always finding excuses not to sing. Then I decided to face my shadow, which was the slow self-esteem, and I asked Bobin Sana to help me remove that, to let go of it, and to finally sing in ceremonies. So what I did is an offer. My intentions were to let go and finally open my voice in ceremony and sing. In exchange, as an offer, I gave Bob and Sana my full attentions and decided to fast for 10 days. So 10 days was actually a dry fast, no water, no food. And while I was drinking Bobinsana, extract of Bobinsana, I was also doing undergoing ceremonies every other day. Finally, at the end, I found the courage to sing in ceremony, and I sang. And while I was singing, I was able to also feel and see what was coming up and what was released. And ever since, I never stopped singing in ceremonies. It took me years to get to the point, and I was able to release that by offering my time and full devotions to Bobinsana and the fasting, the dry fasting until I sang. See if there are other questions. Someone asked me if I've heard, this person heard that when died at Noya Rao, it's best never to receive cambo again. Do you know if this is true? Thank you. Gracias. Um, to answer this question, I'll say that it's important to listen to the maestros, your teacher. There are different maestros that will tell you a different rules to follow when you study with them. Which is true. I've heard that some maestro preferred for their students not to work with Kambo maybe ever again after Noya Rao dieta, for example. While the other maestro that for them it's not so important. So first of all, it's fundamental that you follow your maestro guidance. So if you're not sure, you ask your maestro what they think. I personally think that it's okay. I worked with Noya Rao and Kambo, of course. I'll choose not to work with them together. I would say after a dieta with Noya Rao, usually my maestro will tell me not to work with Kambo for maybe a week or 2 weeks. Had maestro that told me for 2 months, for 3 months. Then I will work when the post dieta is over. Also, I can understand that for for the Shipibo maesters, um, working with Campbell, it's for them it's very different, or let's say they don't know much about it. The Shipibo people they don't work with Campbell. The masses, yes, they do, and so they don't know how the energy of the Campbell work with the master plant, and so just prefer not to take any risks. And so they'll say, hey, I don't know Kambo, I haven't worked with Kambo, I don't know the energy of the Kambo and how this Kambo will work with Noya Rao or the other master plants. So it's best to, there's no risk to work with. If you are someone that want to diet but also work with master plant, work with Kambo, then you have to ask your maestro. There's so many questions. I'm gonna take a couple of more. Maybe ask Estefania to pass me some questions because I see some old ones. I wanna see if I can get some new ones. Okay, there's a question here. If would it be beneficial to join a remote dieta after attending a retreat? How do these two experiences complement each other? Good question. The remote dieta that we are offering in October is a Noya Rao Remote dieta. So I'd say if you planning to diet Noya Rao, then it's great to continue dieting Noya Rao on a remote dieta. Let's say you might have a week or 2 weeks apart, and maybe during the time of the 2 weeks you can continue with the post dieta, maybe stretch it a little longer. Make sure you introduce the food that you can to get the energy and strength to now to another dieta. So they're very complementary. Dieting Noya Rao, maybe in person, and then a remote dieta right after. However, if you diet another master plant, you have to ask your maestros how long is the post dieta before I diet another master plant. It's also important that during this time you give yourself space to integrate all the lessons, all the teachings from the master plant. So often, Don Miguel, for example, gives a month or so before you diet another master plant, which is a very important time to give yourself to integrate before you move to another master plant, to another tree or another plant. All right. I hope this makes sense. Let's take another question. I'm gonna take one more question. All right. Okay, I think I like this question. Okay, is there a specific master plant for dissociation and nervous system freeze? I feel that in this case there isn't one single master plant. They can help with dissociations and nervous system because every person is unique, and the work with the master plant is of support of the deep healing, but depending on your personal history and wherever you know you're ready and whatever guidance you can receive. So let's say some plants might be more gentle which are Bobinsana, for example, just to think about one, which is used for heart healing, maybe for grief, maybe also to soften emotional numbness. But other plants might be more intense, like for example, Chiricsanango, which are very strong, and then container is quite can be quite intense as well. So I'd say to find the right maestro that has worked with someone with dissociations and we on freeze state, because it takes time to soften, takes time to also be ready to fully receive the all energy of the master plant. So maybe before that, the maestro will give you some other plants, maybe a treatment that can help you soften the nervous system, for example, and then work with maybe a more of a gentle plant like Bobinsana. But again, there is like one master plant that will do this or that. It's really unique and really depends of the personal healing, whatever you already know, and what what is the maestro seeing in your case, for example. All right. Okay, one more question. Okay, what's a good master plan to start with, and why it is important to follow the maestro recommendation? Uh, from my experience, a good master plan to start with is some often one that is gentle, that is grounding and heart opening, which I'll say is Bob Insana. My very first dieta was Chihuahua. If you were here, you heard the story. And I say that plant might be more confronting for someone new. So maybe start with something gentle, something more grounding, like Bobinsana, for example, before you go to a plant that might be more intense, so to say, like Chiricsanango or Chuechaki caspi. But in reality, there is not like the right plant. Every person again is different, and that's why it's so important to follow the maestro recommendation. So if you're not sure, your maestro will know better. Often it's someone that have dieted that master plant for very long, and he knows the experience of it. He knows the facts of it. He can tell you also what are the requirement during the the recommendation during the dieta. And the role of the maestro as well is there to provide guidance and support you as well, to maybe match your energy with the spirit of the right master plant. And for you, you will come with an intentions, maybe main intentions, but what you also will receive from the plants are protections and support and guidance. All right, everyone. I think now it's time to say goodbye. Thank you all for all your questions, to be here with me all this time. Much love to you all. And feel that we're going to open this space of conversations maybe again and again. I would like to invite also other maestros maybe or others that have dieted different master plans. Um, for example, I'm thinking about having someone that can tell us more about Mapacho and the energy of the Mapacho as a master plant, someone that have died at the master plant. That is in my vision to manifest. For now, I say I say goodbye, and I hope to see you soon again in the space of conversations. Bye bye. Gracias.